Hello everyone, and welcome back to another installment in our Character Spotlight series. Today we'll be continuing through the characters made available with the final DLC installment, The Fantastic Four and Shadow of Doom. And the character that we will be highlighting in today's video is going to be Invisible Woman, or Sue Storm. Now, real quick before we jump into her breakdown, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel as I bring content to you daily, and the subscription is free and easy. And don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed the content of today's video. Now, Sue Storm debuted alongside the rest of her Fantastic Four compatriots in Fantastic Four #1, which debuted in November of 1961. And she has an interesting set of powers, which includes, of course, as her name would imply, invisibility, but she's also able to project invisibility as well as create invisible force fields, or force field projection, I should say, which allows her to do a couple of different things. It basically makes her telekinetic because she can use these force field projections for attacks as well as object manipulation as well. So it really makes things very interesting for her as a character, and she has some moves that are quite entertaining to use as well. Now, the moves and abilities that she has access to start off with the Force Spheres, where she releases crackling energy ahead of her to trap enemies in a bubble. And this is an attack that you can continue to use as you hold the button. The second attack that she has access to, and it is an attack, is the Invisible Wall. This summons an energy barrier from the ground, and you can hold the button to kind of adjust the area where you will be introducing the barrier in question. Now, it stays up for a little bit, but it is something that you can and your allies can pass through, so don't worry about it inhibiting your movement upon summoning this attack. Her third attack is the Stealth Strike, where she invisibly approaches enemies and then releases a shockwave. You can hold the button to adjust the timing, and you can actually walk around as you are using this attack from her as well. And her fourth and final ability is not an attack, but rather a protective field. So this is throughout the fight to encompass not only yourself, but all of your teammates in a protective covering, which allows you protection from ranged attacks from the enemies that you are encountering, which is the majority of those attacks that you would tend to encounter as you progress through a lot of the content in rifts or story questing. Now, we've still got the full team set up here with the Fantastic Four to showcase, they're here, and I'm really excited and happy that they are. We're going to jump right into a level 200 rift, as we have already showcased where you can obtain these four characters. If you missed that, make sure you go back and check out my video on Mr. Fantastic, and I have a whole playlist of all my other character spotlights. If you've missed them on the channel, go ahead and check that out, as we have these types of breakdowns for each character in the game, minus the few that we'll be doing shortly hereafter. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into that level 200 rift and showcase what Invisible Woman is capable of. All right, so immediately we're going to showcase a couple of just overall mechanics about Invisible Woman. And she does have a fly mechanic where she projects one of her force field barriers around underneath her feet and then can use that to fly around the arena. Her standard attacks are mostly melee based, though the final attack of her melee attacks includes a force field concussive blast that goes out and provides some knockdown. Her heavy attack is a sweeping arc of that same force field that will zip out in front of her. And actually a cool thing that we haven't showcased for a lot of these characters is her dodge mechanic allows her to kind of phase into an invisible animation and slip away from the opponents. Now, in terms of her aerial attack, she does throw down a couple of area of effect force field barriers that provide knockdown upon contact with the opponents in question. But let's jump into her attacks. These are some of her force field balls, which, as you can see over there on the edge, will trap some of the opponents that you hit in some force spheres as it comes into contact with her. And this is something that you can continue to use as you mash the button. Now, it's not overly reliable and doesn't put out a crazy amount of damage, but it is something that you can use and to increase your utility for sure. Now, her invisible wall, you can't really see where it's going to sprout up, but you can hold it as you charge up the area where you will be unleashing that attack. Let's grab some more of these so we can showcase it one more time. And it deals a very significant amount of damage to even the heavier stagger requirement of opponents. So let's run over, grab this full refresh here, and showcase the Stealth Strike. Now, Stealth Strike allows you to run around undetected on the battlefield, but as you hone in on the opponents, you will release a concussive blast. This is one of her stronger attacks, in my opinion, though you do need to keep in mind that you will continue to lose your EP as you charge up the attack. It does not necessarily increase the amount of damage that you can dole out with the attack in question. Now, for her fourth ability, we have her Protective Field, where she will cover all of your allies in this bubble, and you can see this around all of the members of the team. As you level this up, it will continue to increase in its effectiveness. Now, for her extreme attack, you want to kind of centralize yourself around a bunch of enemies, but it does have an area of effect around Sue where it will trap the opponents in a bubble, and she will kind of whip them around with some of her invisible enchants here. Now, Sue is more of a support type character. She's not the character that I've found myself using with high frequency, though she does have some reliable damage output that she can use to her benefit. So let's get another enchant here. Now, this does not protect you from any of these rushdown type attacks or other attacks that you might be receiving from opponents, but you'll ultimately find yourself, or at least I have found myself, using primarily a combination of the Stealth Strike and the Invisible Wall, as those are her more reliable damage output attacks and abilities that she has. So that's going to do it for today's video. Invisible Woman, she's a lot of fun to play with. I find a couple of other members of the team a little bit more enjoyable just because they do tend to have a little bit more damage output, but she's still a important contribution given her importance in the members of the Fantastic Four, as well as her usefulness as a support unit for the other members of your team, especially if you're needing to mitigate some damage from primarily projectile-based attacks. Now, we'll be back with our follow-up installment in this series on Friday, where we will showcase Human Torch and his abilities. So don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, as the subscription is free and easy, and I bring content to you on a daily basis from a lot of different games, not just Ultimate Alliance 3, though I have been having a lot of fun with this series in particular. But that's going to do it for me today. Thanks again for watching, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day.